So how did the Plasmatics come into your orbit?
Well, funnily enough, after a accidents rehearsal in Lower Manhattan one night, as I was leaving the studio out of another rehearsal studio, was a guy I knew in high school. And he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Wes, you want to go check out my aunt's boyfriend's band? They're playing CBGBs and they need some people to come there. It's their first time they're playing there." And I says, "Okay, I'll go down and check them out." And we go down there, and it was the Plasmatics' first show at CBGB's. And I remember watching the band, and I thought, in my mind, I thought the band was terrible. But Wendy was so riveting that, I couldn't take my eyes off of her. She pranced back and forth and just commanded the stage. And the band looked interesting, but, they didn't really sound that good. So fast forward about 6 months later, the accidents had broken up, and I'd been auditioning for various bands and things, and there was an ad in the Village Voice that said they were looking for the world's fastest rhythm guitar player. And rhythm guitar was my forte. I'd never really played lead guitar at that time. So I went down, called them up, and they didn't say anything about the Plasmatics or who the band was. And went down to this loft in Lower Manhattan, and when I hit the buzzer, the Oriental bass player I recognized from the band answered the door. That was Chosei Funahara.
Right.
And I thought he was the leader of the band because he counted off all the songs.
In Japanese, right?
In Japanese, right.
It's great.
So they took me down into the basement of the place, and it was dark and dank, and it had low-hanging pipes that were dripping with water and sweaty. And I'm sitting there, and its room is really crowded, packed with, prospective players. So as I'm sitting there waiting to audition, I hear them playing the same song over and over again. Now, at this point, I started, figuring out the song. So when I went in there, they said, "Here, let us show you the song." I said, "Oh, I already know it. I heard you playing it for the last, 20 minutes." So they were pretty impressed with that. And Wendy wasn't there. It was just the band and Rod Swenson, manager, who was sitting in front of the band. And I went up, played with them, and they liked me. At that time, I had a white Flying V, and guitarist Richie Stotts of the Plasmatics played Flying Vs. He goes, "Oh, that's a really cool guitar." I said, yeah, I like it. So they invited me back 2 more times, and I was up against kind of a new wave guy, short hair, and a girl who were, auditioning for the band. But I definitely played the best, and Rod took me aside. He says, "Look, we like you. We'd like you to be in the band, but you seem to have a little bit of a weight problem. Can you lose some weight?" And I said, "Sure." So I went on a crash diet and lost 30 pounds in 3 weeks. And
wow,
I was in the band.
That's 10 pounds a week, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I went on this diet. It was nothing but black coffee, green peppers, and cottage cheese.
No
and maybe
shit.
an occasional cupcake. And that was it. And drank a lot of black coffee.
Wow. And then
I was determined. And the band was getting a lot of publicity at that time. They were on the cover of Soho News and Q Magazine, which later became New York Magazine.
Sure. Things are happening with the band. Things are sort of trucking along. Could you give us any perspective on what kind of a person was Wendy O. Williams just in those sort of early kind of working days with the band? What could you give us any perspective on her?
Oh, sure. Wendy was just an absolute sweetheart of a person. She was like almost the older sister to us. She'd watch over us. She'd make sure when we were doing shows that we had everything we were supposed to have on the riders. And she would push us. I mean, she would literally push us. And she was such a hard worker. She worked at her craft all the time. She would go out and she would run 5 or 6 miles every day. And then she'd come back to rehearse. And, so the end of the show, she'd be there ready to go. And, we'd all be dripping in sweat and panting. And Wendy was just, she was just a powerhouse. I've never seen anybody with such a strong work ethic before. She was constantly had a Walkman on her ears and listening to the songs and singing along to the tapes and rehearsing and running. She would work out. She would work out in her loft and go to gyms. And here's something really funny. She walked into a Miss Universe pageant, and she just walked in off the street, and she took second place.
Wow.
Or not Miss, I missed weightlifting or some weightlifting competition. She just walked in off the street and won second place.
Wow.
So she was amazing. She was really incredible, and I miss her every day, really.